Hey there, what's up, guys? I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, the most memorable seasons in baseball history, as far as I'm concerned, tended to be the seasons that came when I was in my early teens. Part of that may have been because of the year I was born. I mean, when I was 14 years old, we lived through the 1998 season, right? Which was definitely memorable for oh so many reasons. I've always felt that 1998 was a real special experience and season, and to this day, feel a little bit uncomfortable around the discussion about steroids by people who want to talk about how it ripped the game apart, because that was one of my favorite seasons of all time. I imagine that many of you might feel the same way, that maybe some of the best memories you have come from baseball seasons from when you were teenagers, maybe in your early teens. I mentioned that here because this replay was a replay of a season that was played when the replayer was about 15 years old. And as you'll see, I think it really means a lot to him. You know which season it is, by the way, if you just take a look over at the thumbnail. It's no major secret. This is a replay done by Mike Mathias. If you don't visit the Replay Sports forum and read all the Replay baseball results, you probably have never heard of him. Mike Mathias is currently the most prolific baseball replayer that I know of. I mean, this guy has played tens of thousands of games in the last 20 years or so. As you can see here from his website, he's completed, I believe the count is 21 seasons. He has another season going right now. He updates just about every day, and he's the only person I've ever seen who will play every single game on a given day in real life, like on a certain day, right? He'll play, I mean, he must be playing for 4 or 5 hours a day, which is pretty impressive. That's something that personally I can't do. I can't quite get myself to play at that pace. The other impressive thing, of course, is that there's no autoplay games because all of these games are played with the Replay Baseball board game, not the computer game, the board game, and done by hand. All of the statistics are kept, again, by hand. It's really impressive. There's nobody out there doing quite the same thing that I'm aware of. I do know of somebody previously on the APBA forum who was pretty controversial, actually, who would rip through games very quickly. He wasn't playing them the way that Mike has been playing these. Now, before we get into this, I should put on a caveat, which is that Mike, at least to my knowledge, tends to use real-life lineups and the as-played schedule. Remember, I'm a bigger proponent of the as-scheduled schedule and creating your own lineup. I imagine he does this perhaps to save time, although I would argue, if you're watching Mike, that if you went away from real-life lineups and instead had lineups of your own that are informed by real life, you might find that you have a little more control and that your replays are a little bit more immersive. With no further ado, though, we'll get straight into this. We're going to go look at the 1975 replay, which he began actually back in 2010. It's amazing. It's been, about 14 years since this replay started. We're going to, though, jump ahead and look first at the final statistics before we get into everything else, because there's some things that are going on here that are pretty interesting, right? I mean, the first thing is this PDF file, 66 pages, which is very, very nice. The thing I wanted to look at here, though, before anything else, are the final standings. So you think there's not a whole lot standing. All right, the Pirates and the Reds won in the National League. Pirates a bit better than real life. Reds right about the same. Actually, I think a bit worse. We can take a look here. Yeah, the Reds won 108 in real life. In this replay, only 106. I mean, just about right on. Red Sox, of course, won in the American League East. 101 victories as compared. Here we go. Sorry, we're going to go here. There we go, to 95 in real life. But then the big question is, what happened to the Oakland Athletics and why did the Kansas City Royals win? Now, I'm going to tell you that there's something going on with the 1975 Kansas City Royals. When I was a kid, my dad had a copy of the 75 original APBA baseball season. I played with it a lot. What I learned pretty quickly was that the Kansas City Royals seemed to be incredibly powerful, and they seem to be able to win a lot more games certainly than Oakland could. And frequently in my American League Championship Series, when I would play it, the Royals would end up beating the Red Sox. I can think of a particular APBA Journal published replay that we'll get into later, in which the Royals did win the World Series, beating, I think it was the Reds. We'll look at that a little bit later on. what I'm trying to say is that it's not uncommon for this Kansas City team to win in a replay, but I don't understand why, right? Because when we go take a look here at the 1975 American League and we start looking at some of the numbers, we'll see that this wasn't a team that had a particularly amazing Pythagorean number, right? They scored only 649 runs in a league that averaged 690 runs scored, right? So they were better than the Yankees, and they were better than the Orioles. And also actually than the Athletics, but this isn't a team that strikes me as being absolutely incredible in terms of the ability to score runs, right? Now, when it comes to preventing runs from being scored, they were one of the better teams in the American League, but you also had the Yankees and Athletics who were better, and of course the Baltimore Orioles. So there's a big question here, not in terms necessarily of accuracy, but more in terms of like what's going on. Have you had the same experience with 1975 and with the Kansas City Royals? And if so, like, do you have any idea why they tend to be sort of overemphasized in these replays? Anyway, a couple other interesting things just to point out. Rod Carew won the American League batting title hitting .381. The reason why I had this over is to show that he had .359 in real life. So his replay card, for whatever reason, is really stands out and looks pretty impressive. There's nothing strange going on in terms of home runs and other things. Earned run average, however, is a little bit different because you have 3 Kansas City starters with very good earned run averages, which is not what happened in real life, right? Real life, it was Jim Palmer who ended up with a 2.09 ERA. In fact, you have to go down to, who is this, Steve Busby, with a 3.08 ERA to get the first Royal that shows up on the real life American League leaders. So something's going on here. Exactly what? I don't know. Does it say something bad about the game? I don't know. You be the judge of that. But this is a bit odd. We'll take a quick look at the National League. Not too much going on here standing out. It's not unusual to have like Mike Schmidt lead in home runs. Bill Madlock, Joe Morgan fighting for the batting crown. None of this is extraordinarily strange. ERA here, for the most part, looks okay, except, of course, Don Golick with a 1.63 ERA. I'm pretty sure that Sparky Anderson would have loved that. Now, we'll go through this really, really quickly, because what we want to go to next, he has all of these comparisons between players in the replay and real life. We won't get into that. That's a little bit more granular than what I care about. This is the part that we want to get into next, which is looking specifically at what the statistics look like in the replay and compared to real life, especially the major league statistics. Very happy that Mike did this for us, especially this part here on the right, because it's a lot easier to just look at this and see what the replay was like, right? The rate statistics are right on. I mean, dead on. This is what you want to see from your replay. This is a very, very good sign. The runs scored is also right on. 102% of runs scored is exactly where you want to be. All of these statistics are looking great. There were a few more shutouts than in real life, but don't let the 108% fool you when you look at this and you realize that that was a total of 18 more than in real life. I mean, it's going to happen, right? Maybe you get a few more, maybe a few less. ERA is right on, right? Exactly what we want to see. He had a couple more triples than in real life. That might be a little bit questionable. But then again, you also had a few fewer home runs. So it kind of balances out in that sense. Looking through this, the only other things, so I don't know much about the replay stolen base caught stealing system and whether there is a systematic reason perhaps why caught stealing was down by almost 10%. Perhaps some of you could help. Sacrifice hits, of course, I'm assuming are mostly at the discretion of the replayer. It's not uncommon to see sacrifice hits that are fewer than in real life. It's not making a huge difference here, of course, in any of the other statistics. And then the odd thing for me was that sacrifice flies would be so far off, right? Off by almost 200 sacrifice flies. That's kind of a strange thing. Again, I don't know the game that well. Maybe there's something within the game that's causing this to happen. Let me know. Let me know what you think, especially if you're really familiar with this. So now we'll dig into the replay itself. The write-up of the replay is fascinating. I'll put a link down below so you can read it yourself. It's really, really well done. he does so many things that are so good, including going through all of these off-season transactions with all of these comments about what happened and how he felt about that and what it was like at the time. He has predictions for the season. He has just this absolute great build-up for the season, and it took him some time to create it. Then he goes ahead and jumps straight into it. If you're interested in how this is played, he talks here. Let's see if I can find the post. There's a post where he mentions how he's playing the replay. So yeah, playing these with the 1x6 pitchers, which I think is the older type of pitcher card. He was using Replay's ballpark effects for the first time, and so on and so forth. Now, when we jump into what happens here at the end, it's interesting how he talks about the World Series. So the Red Sox did face the Reds again in the World Series, and he would post sort of like World Series happenings inning by inning, which is an interesting thing to do. And you can see how quickly he was writing them, like 1 minute between each inning, which is much faster than I play. The other interesting thing is that he also uploads PDFs of his box score, his score sheet, and so you can read and see what happened. As you can see, he has the lineups penciled in automatically before the game started. I think that's one of the reasons why he's not using his own lineups, but rather using the manual ones just to save that amount of time. He also has much better handwriting than me. If you were going to look at a spreadsheet or a score sheet I wrote, you would have to, I don't know, you wouldn't be able to read it, I'll tell you that. You told me to go to medical school. So in this particular game, the Red Sox won 1-0 in a fairly close affair. It's really neat, though, that Mike would come out with this sort of thing, and it, I think, really helps in terms of remembering the replay all these years later. This was played, January 2012, so that was 12 years ago, and we can still go back through it today and take a look. Now, spoiler alert here, the Boston Red Sox ended up winning the World Series 4-3, beating Cincinnati 2-1 in a final game that went down to the final pitch with Geronimo on at second with 2 outs for the Reds, and Andreessen flew out, and that did it. There you have it for your replay. So in this version of it, the Red Sox were able to win and were able to complete the dream of 1975 and win their first World Series since 1918. And so there you have it. There are statistics here within the replay, or within the replay write-up itself, specific to the World Series that you can read through and look at. The championship series as well, and so on and so forth. It's a really, really interesting way of presenting the replay and of talking about it, and it really is a lot of fun to sort of flip through and to look at. So that'll give you, I think, a couple of ideas of things that you can try to do yourself in a replay. The really tricky thing about a replay, coming up with like a good narrative for it and something to get people interested, is that you don't know what's going to happen, right? So it's possible that in these replays of seasons that have really memorable postseasons, I think like 75, 1986, right, 2001, seasons like that, it's always possible that you're going to end up with a replay that is not quite as close, or a postseason at the end that's not quite as exciting. It's a very, very rare event that you have something that so closely mirrors what happened in real life, and that is, as a result, so enjoyable. This is an excellent replay, very, very well done. And in looking through it, I keep thinking, boy, there's a lot of things I want to take from how he covers these games and how he set up the replay and use it in my own projects in the future. Anyway, like I said, I'll leave a link down below. I'm not sure that Mike's watched any of my YouTube videos. I know that he reads the blog, however, and so Mike, if you're out there, thank you again for the great replay. Love to hear more from you and keep going, and we're probably going to look at a couple more of your replays and just sort of talk about them and look into what happened. So we'll leave it there. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.